who has completed NPH and an infant parental mental health fellowship. Dr. Naveed has authored over 100 publications, written 2 chapters, and presented at national and international conferences. He is recognized as a distinguished fellow at the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. He currently serves as a chair of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. So Dr. Naveed.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here. Just one correction, I'm chair of APNA, which is Association of Pakistani Physicians of North American Descent. I'm excited to learn from all of you. Sorry, I'm on call, so I'm sort of in between hospitals. I will be here for question and answer session and happy to add things and learn from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Naveed. Next, we have Dr. Himanshu Pandey. He's a board certified internist with practice in Queens, Long Island, and Brooklyn. He's a board of director at New York City Health and Hospital Corporation, which is the NYC HHC Gotham Health, the largest public health system in the United States. He's also past chair of the American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, also known as API. He chaired the Academic and Research Committee and is currently chair of the Mentorship Committee of API QLI, Queens, Long Island. He's also a he was also board of director at SNAP, Services for Adult Person, and SNAP delivers 2,700 hot meals under the program Meals on Wheels every month in Queens. Dr. Pandya has been honored by Hofstra University as part of the Suburban Diversity Program in November 2017. Dr. Pandya. Well,
Michael, you may need to make him a co-host.
He's unmuted now.
Thank you, Dr. Pandya. You're unmuted. Well, we'll just, while he's having some technical difficulties, I will skip Dr. Pandya for now and have come back to him after then.
Dr. Sehgal, thank you. Sorry. I'm also out of town at the wedding. I'm so sorry for that. But thank you so much for the introduction. And I would like to thank Dr. Mehta for making this happen and Dr. Sehgal for arranging this one. I would also like to thank all the ethnic organization leaders coming on this platform on Saturday morning. I have a lot of experience helping IMG getting into the residency, also mainly for the observership. While I was a chair with API, we helped so many international medical graduates getting into residency, guide them, and also whenever they needed some help, we try to help them. And I think Dr. Mehta is coming up with the different programs for that. Also, I would like to thank API QLI, Dr. Jayam and Dr. Gupta for giving me this opportunity, and I'm representing API QLI. It's API of Queens and Long Island with more than 1,000 physicians. We are working on helping students, international medical graduates, to see that if they can participate in the observership, trying to get some mentorship to these international medical graduates. And we are looking forward to help in a way, whatever way we can help. So entire API QLI and also API is willing to help under the MSSNY and all the ethnic organization leadership. But thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pandya, for amazing work you're doing. And the final panelist today is Imelda Tavis. She's a Chief Administrative Officer at Essen Healthcare and also oversees its non-for-profit, New York Research, Education, and Community Health. In fact, she probably is a Chief IMG for all the work she does. As an international medical graduate and surgeon from Philippines who decided to move into administrative career, she is so dedicated to helping IMGs and spends a lot of countless hours helping them, hence deserving a title of Chief IMG. Imelda.
Thank you, Dr. Sagal. I'm very humbled to be part of this esteemed panelist. And thank you, Ms. Nee, for all this support that you are showing to our international medical graduates across the board. Back in 2016, as I was starting my career at Essen, I did not know that there is such an organization, and you are all lucky to have a lot of legends here today supporting the movement of international medical graduates getting into residency program here in the United States. I do have 5 minutes that I was asked to present. So I did put together some information for our international medical graduates. So I will try my best to cut that down for our main speaker. But this is, I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it, Imelda.
Great. All right. A brief overview. I represent Essen Healthcare today and NY Reach, and it is very important for me to let everybody know what we have for international medical graduates at this great organization, Essen Healthcare. We are the largest multi-specialty practice in Bronx, New York, with more than 400 practitioners employed in our organization. We have 5 distinct clinically integrated divisions, namely our primary care division. We have about 26 specialties. We also have urgent care, probably about 35 urgent care locations now across the Bronx and also in Queens. We have about 45 nursing home facilities where we provide medical staffing to, and also our house call program, which is the largest house call program who sees patients in the home for elderly population. We are also the largest care management agency in the state of New York. So not just providing clinical services, but here at Essen, you will learn how to address social determinants of health, which is now the main focus of US healthcare system. How they can decrease the cost of healthcare is through addressing the social determinants of health. And this is through our health home program, where we have close to 9,000 members with chronic conditions that need addressing the social determinants of health. But more importantly, what I want to say about Essen is this is really an IMG friendly organization. And I say that with big smiles because I've seen it throughout my career at Essen. Even though as an operator or like running operations in the organization, I always have the opportunity through Dr. Samir Sagal's leadership to allow for my passion to help IMGs get to their career path or where they want to be it in residency program or alternative pathways. So the next slide that I will show you are the job opportunities we have. We at Essen is truly dedicated as an IMG-friendly organization that we organized a department called Clinical Training and Academics Program, where Syed Ahmed is one of my staff who really are same advocate for all the IMGs. We put together a lot of programs here, including oversight of job placements for any international medical graduate who's looking to have a clinical assistant role and also a clinical care coordinator role. These two are distinct roles and responsibilities, but the more advanced one is a combined role called a clinical assistant care coordinator, where you're going to be participating in our population health model and really changing the way how healthcare is delivered in the communities that we serve. So as you go and join Essen, there are career development opportunities like a residency preparation program, where as you're working as a medical scribe, you're learning a lot of techniques to actually speak to patients through our care coordination program, as well as get a knowledge of how US healthcare system is by being getting the practical knowledge in operations as you join our teams. We also allow IMGs to join our continuing medical education programs through our provider learning series. We also have research data analyst program and a competitive limited permit program for those that are ECFMG certified and have excellent clinical acumen could apply. All these activities, you know, some of you may get 3 months in, and then you can be lucky to get into the residency program. But historically, Essen have seen every year we are able to put in 30 residents coming from our clinical training and academics program. So that's really something to say from our historical work at for the international medical graduates. If you are not ready yet or lucky enough to get into the program, we do have alternative pathways where you can still practice medicine through our medical graduate to nurse practitioner program. And if clinical is not something you want to pursue in the future, you can also join our administrative master's program and professional certification. Lastly, we do have volunteer opportunity partnership with NY Reach. That I will speak a little bit more for just 1 more minute. But before that, I will end Essen Healthcare to just let you know that if you want to apply for a clinical job, this is where you can apply. You can visit our website at www.essenhealthcare.com and look for clinical jobs and apply there. You can also contact our academics division at the number below and the email below, or scan this QR code. We can post this in the chat or distribute it later. Lastly, our volunteer program in NY Reach. New York Reach is Research, Education, and Community Health. And this is a nonprofit organization that is really focused on workforce development and how these workforce could be part of to change the way how community is served and to improve the health of communities that are really underserved. So we do have a volunteer program, and it's open to all, including non-US residents. It is an 8-week program when we partner with organizations such as Essen Healthcare and other organizations in the community. And you will be able to get experience participating in community outreach programs and some of the household homebound programs and future programs. And I will wrap up my presentation. I know I went too fast there, Dr. Segal. But lastly, if you want to get additional updates on future IMG events, we do have a link for you here. We will share this as well and a QR code. Sign up on our listserv and you'll be able to get future IMG opportunity events that you can join and network with esteemed people as well, like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imelda. Thank you for all you do, and appreciate that all that information you have shared. And finally, a drum roll for our main speaker, Dr. Stephen Peterson. Imelda, if you may stop sharing your screen. Thank you so much. Dr. Peterson, we can't thank you enough for joining this on your vacation. So I hope you're having a wonderful time. I hope this is the main event of your vacation. But just as an introduction to the other folks, Dr. Peterson is a top internist serving as chairman of medicine in the Department of Medicine in New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. He's also professor of clinical medicine in the Joan and Stanford Weill Department of Medicine at Weill Cornell Medical College, and is assistant dean of New York Methodist Hospital at Weill Cornell Medicine. Little known fact, Dr. Peterson is also an international medical graduate. And we are very proud of all the work you do, and everybody looks up to you as a leader, Dr. Peterson. So thank you so much for volunteering for this event, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this invitation. So one of the things that I would like to impress upon you is something that Dr. Barmecha said before, the magic words of lifelong learner. Program directors are not just looking for somebody who wants a job, they're looking for someone who wants to become a lifelong learner in medicine. How do you get that across to a program director? It's done through the personal statement. And if your personal statement is like most, you go and take what you wrote to get into medical school, add a paragraph, and voila, and it is not the approach you want to take. Examples of bad personal statements are, it all started when my grandmother died when I was 3, and I wanted to be a doctor ever since. And it does not ring true at all. And there are people who write personal statements that also start with, it was a dark and stormy night in the ICU when I was on call. You're not writing a novel. A personal statement is 4 paragraphs. 4 paragraphs, 1 page. And the personal statement is the question of how do you show that you have the ability to self-assess? Self-assessment is the most important thing in a residency program. And it's called practice-based learning, where you have the ability to assess yourself in every learning situation. For example, I'm an intern going to the ICU. And while I might be a 4.5 out of 5 resident overall, I'm a 3 going to the ICU because I don't know how to work those respirators. I'm not really so great at antibiotic choices, and those ventilators scare me to death. So what do? My learning situation, my collaborative learning situation is, okay, my educational plan, I'm going to study on those ventilators and work with the respiratory therapists. I am going to end up reading on acid base. And at the end of the month, my attending is supposed to say to me, how did you do on your self-appointed learning opportunities? And I'm establishing myself as a lifelong learner, my ability to self-assess. So I'm going to assess, find out what my deficiencies are, and then use the computer, use professors, use every available opportunity to learn how to put those together. Now, what happens is at the end of your rotation, you're supposed to end up having showing the program director your self-assessment. How did it change? I'm very good at acid base for simple and mixed, triples, not so much. I'm much better at the respirators. They don't scare me. I know how to work with the respiratory therapist, et cetera, et cetera. Now, back to the personal statement. The personal statement is the ultimate self-assessment. You are not the same person who went to medical school. And what they're looking for is your professional development from the day you started medical school to the day you finished. So what happens is writing that, you went to, followed your uncle around in the hospital at the age of 7 isn't going to impress anybody. You're trying to show what happened to you over the course of medical school and your experiences. Paragraph 1 of your personal statement is who you are and why. For example, I could write, hello, my name is Stephen Peterson. I went into medical school for my love of math and science. But when I hit the clinical floors, I understood for the first time that my love was for internal medicine, for the ability to make diagnoses and help people. I'm looking for a program in internal medicine to start X number, July 1st, 2023, for example. Paragraph 2 and 3 are your experiences. Tell me about what influenced you in medical school. For example, I was rotating in the ICU and I was helping a resident stabilize a 37-year-old woman who was in ARDS, intubated, medically stable on one pressor, oxygenating well as she was intubated on 60% FiO2 oxygen. And even though she was considered medically stable, I saw nothing in her eyes but fear. I watched an attending by the name of the attending of your choice, I'll use Dr. Parag Mehta, walk in and sit at the bedside and hold the hand of the patient and the hand of the spouse in the other. And before he even opened his mouth to introduce himself, I watched that fear dissipate. And I understood for the first time that the art and science of medicine was demonstrated in front of me. I decided that day I want to be one of those physicians. Paragraph 3 is another medical story. It can be any number of your stories. I was on call in the emergency room when a STEMI came in, and I was eager to participate with the cardiology fellow and the interventional cardiologist in addressing the STEMI in the cath lab. I watched a patient in cardiogenic shock, and I watched this interventional attending put in a balloon pump and open up the Widowmaker in the left anterior descending. And I saw this patient 2 days later in the ICU with return to function, pinked up, and feeling fantastic with minimal myocardial damage. I realize in these stories that the ultimate is that I'm looking for a program that emphasizes medical knowledge, clinical skills, compassionate professional attitudes, and compassionate behaviors. When you enter a residency program, you are going to be being evaluated by that program director for 3 years of training or 4 years, depending upon what program you select. But if you select internal medicine, it's 3 years. And during that 3 years, you are going to be evaluated again and again for your medical knowledge, your clinical skills, your professional attitudes, and your compassionate behaviors. And what I'm asking you to describe in paragraphs 2 and 3, examples of fantastic medical knowledge, fantastic clinical skills, and absolutely for the professional attitudes and compassionate behaviors demonstrated. You want to be one of those people. The doctors we all wanted to be in medical school were the people we admired because they had all 4 of those characteristics. And the most important thing is the last paragraph. And the last paragraph is a summary of all of those things. So you're saying, in summary, I'm looking for a program that will continue to advance my medical knowledge, my clinical skills, and my professional attitudes and compassionate behaviors. Above all, I'm looking for a program that will enhance my ability to contribute to the medical literature, learning more about biostatistics, learning more about clinical trials, learning more about clinical research, and how to write papers. Your closing paragraph has to be a killer. And I'll tell you in a few minutes why. In summary, I'm looking for a program that will enhance my ability to become one of the attendings that I admired in my personal statement. Now, when you actually are doing this, the personal statement, I'm going to tell you a secret about what we program directors have done for years and years and years. A program director's letter is 4 paragraphs also. The program director's first is the introduction, who you are, who he is, how well he knows you, and how he knows you. Second is your medical knowledge, your academics, your publications, your research, everything academic. Paragraph 3 of a program director's letter is your personality. It's your compassionate, describing your professional attitudes and compassionate behaviors, how well you actually work with the nursing staff and the rest of the paraprofessional team. Paragraph 4 is the summary, every summary. In summary, I highly recommend this outstanding candidate for a position in your internal medicine residency program. I believe this candidate has the medical knowledge, the clinical skills, the professional attitudes, and the compassionate behaviors that signal a successful candidate for internal medicine. I also believe that this candidate has committed him or herself to lifelong learning in medicine. If you have any questions about this candidate, please do not hesitate to contact me. Now, that personal last paragraph is so important because if the letter writer can't summarize those things for you. And why is this important? I'm going to now share you a secret. How does a program director go through 2,000 applications to select 40 people? Well, we set the computer to knock out anybody who's graduated more than 5 years. So if you've graduated more than 5 years, go get your master's in epidemiology, global health, something, because that now establishes yourself as a new graduate. Second, the computer will establish certain grades. Now that's all going to be changing with the pass-fail system that we're entering into, but that selected a lot of people out of the system. Third, we go through program director's letter of recommendation, and the personal statement. And we read the last paragraph first. And if the last paragraph doesn't grab me, we keep going. Next. Could we miss a good candidate? Yes. But there's 600 more right behind it. So you must make sure that your personal statement, last paragraph, is standalone. And then go read it out loud to yourself. Would you select you as the candidate based on that one paragraph? It has to be the best paragraph you've ever written. Write it again and again and again. Now, my advice to you is when you ask someone for letters of recommendation, the letters of recommendation, I always tell my residents when they're going for fellowship or my students going for residency, if you admired that attending enough to ask for a letter of recommendation because they know you so well, then that should be one of the people you're describing that interaction with, sitting at the bedside, holding the hand, et cetera, the person you went to the cath lab with. And you shouldn't be asking for a letter of recommendation that's just off the cuff. Here, can you write a letter for me? That person should be getting a copy of your updated CV and a copy of your updated personal statement. And they should see themselves in your personal statement. And when they do, I guarantee you that letter of recommendation will be 10% better already. So when you're writing people to ask them for this letter, you want to make sure that all of this all comes together. Now, when you write 3 letters of recommendation for somebody, the faculty know the best students and the worst. So when you actually have somebody writing a letter, the 3 letters should look like they're talking about the same person. So the 3 letters of recommendation should be, they sound like they're all, how do they converge? How do they come together? Like they all know the candidate that well. Because they're going to learn something about you and your attitudes from the personal statement they just read. So do not ever ask someone for a letter unless it's coming from someone who's part of your personal statement and part of your CV. Now, as you're actually asking these people to write these letters and it's all coming together, then you end up looking at making sure that your CV is one thing that knocks somebody out of the park, is actually publications, posters, abstracts, and if you have publications, peer-reviewed publications on PubMed, etc. So if you have publications, abstracts, posters, oral presentations, and you list them all together and then list 2 posters, it will knock you right out of contention. And I'll tell you why. Because people think it's academic insincerity, maybe even dishonesty. Because if you've got 2 posters listed under posters, by putting publications, abstracts, posters, or they're not stupid. So do not lump them together. They're all separate categories. If you have only one category, list it. If you're doing currently a research project, list it. But one of the things that will happen is sometimes you're listing in their CV. Let's see, they'll be impressed that I'm doing all this research. I'll list 7 research things that I'm working on or have worked on. And then they're going to look at your publications. If you have 7 research projects and none of them translated into a poster presentation, an abstract, or a full-length publication, they're gonna think that you're just making it up. So be very careful how you put that together. So that being said, now, one of the most important things that you look for in the whole application process is the marriage of your personal statement, your CV, and the application process. So let me go back now to your personal statement. The personal statement, paragraph 1, who you are, your evolution and what you're looking for. Paragraph 2 and 3 are your stories of what has happened to you in medicine. How has this shaped you? How has medical school changed you? And how has it made you desire to become this lifelong learner? And what you're doing is, in a personal statement, for people who write, well, I'm really smart, I am so hardworking, and my God, I'm the most compassionate person you'll probably ever meet. They're going to think that you're either one of those people or you're bipolar. So it's a danger to go right in those in that vein. So how do you get across what your values are? You admire it in other people. You admire the medical knowledge. You admire the clinical skills. You admire the compassionate behaviors sitting at the bedside. You admire all of these, and it might be in one person. And when you think about it, we all want to end up having that person's medical knowledge and that person's clinical skills. I want to end up having that person's ability to communicate with patients. All of that, when you admire it, I'm going to have a window into your soul. I'm going to know who you are. I'm going to know what you value. And those are the two stories. In summary, I'm looking for a program that will continue to enhance my ability with medical knowledge, clinical skills, professional attitudes, and compassionate behaviors. They're going to suddenly realize you know how the evaluation process is done. I'm looking for a program that will continue to enhance these skills. I'm looking for a program that will end up continuing me on my journey as a lifelong learner. It is my hope that one day I will be a fraction of the attendings that I have admired for you in this personal statement. What'll happen is your last paragraph is a killer closing to tell somebody why they should pick you, why you are special. And it's not because you're telling them what you are, you're telling them what you want to become. This lifelong learning process is not just about learning more medicine or learning how to do a cardiac cath. It's about how to be a better human being and how to be a better healer. All of us yearn to be the healers of tomorrow. And that is what you're trying to establish in your personal statement. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Dr. Segal, maybe I put everyone to sleep.
No, Dr. We are watching the chat, and it is just amazing. A lot of questions, but not specifically directed towards personal statement. But Dr. Peterson, you see so many. I see a hand, but I don't have the ability. Punky, is there a question?
Hold on.
Yes, I have a question, if I may ask.
Sure.
So you mentioned about the case, like if we can mention a case that inspired us or in the field that we went on and become a doctor or something like that. Instead of a medical case, can we mention something else in our real life experience that made us want to become a doctor? No, does it have to be limited to a medical case or something like that? Can it be another life experience that can inspire us to want to become a doctor or want to become a certain kind of a doctor?
Yes, you can, but what'll happen is that you're taking a risk when you start talking about something that influenced you many, many years ago. For example, I've decided I want to be a breast cancer surgeon because, God forbid, my mother died of breast cancer when I was 5 years old, and that shaped my life. You're not showing your evolution as a human being from the start of medical school to today. This personal statement, yes, it's about who you are, but if you want to use a personal experience, what will happen is that you could use it as an example. You give an example of something happened today and then relate it to an experience that you had when you were 5, etc. But what happened, you don't want to end up making this personal statement sound like it's the one you got into medical school with. And that's the danger, because when they think you're just doctoring up the personal statement from medical school, that is not the lifelong learner. That's the same resident who's going to copy somebody else's note, taking shortcuts. We're never looking for residents who are shortcut takers. We're looking for people who know who they are today compared to even so much as 1 year ago. And as long as you can establish that, go for it.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stevenson. We have a few hands being raised. So just for housekeeping, the protocol is you all are muted. And I have Michael helping to coordinate. So as you raise your hand, I will call your name and Michael will unmute you and you will ask your questions. So the next question goes to Hannah Killian.
I think it just got fixed, but I wanted to see if we could turn back on the messages. I think that's why nobody could type in a question. So I just want to make sure people had the opportunity to ask those questions. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So So thank you, Hannah. We have Gifty Mensa, who's raised her hand.
Hello, my name is Gifty Mensa, and I'm actually pleased by your enlightening presentation. It has really gone a long way to encourage me. I would like to know whether it's advisable to include certain limitations you do have or certain limitations you faced during your journey in medical school. And my second question would also be about whether you can actually talk about a role model, a famous role model, example Ben Carson, during your the writing of your application, who you can say has influenced you along the road.
I didn't get the first question, but for the second one, yes, people can, you can talk about people who influenced you, but it's not as powerful in a personal statement as your journey in medicine. Now, what will happen is that you could describe, if you wanted to kind of use something, you could end up talking about, for example, a patient that you saw in the hospital, or somebody that you were part of the diagnostic team, and how grateful that patient was and how that influenced you. But what will happen is that if it's something that influenced you even to become a doctor, we know that you wanted to become a doctor. You just finished medical school. So again, going back, it's you will be have a much more powerful personal statement talking about your evolution in over the last 4 years of medical school. To be able to do that, it's very difficult. And we all want to go back and describe something emotional, and because it's moving and it's terrific, but it doesn't describe your evolution for 4 years of medical school. A lot happened in 4 years, and you're trying to capture your journey, because you're not the same person who started medical school. And what program directors want to know is, what changed you? How did you evolve? How did you mature in medicine? And how is that affecting your choices of residency program? For example, someone wrote here, there's a variation of diagnostic medicine, pathology, diagnostic radiology. Absolutely, but the most important things is that it's still medical knowledge and clinical skills. You go and look at a difference between, I'll never forget somebody looking at calcification of the lungs and was talking about the differential diagnosis that was 15 things, and you go like, wow. I mean, we all learn from each other. We're a collaborative team. Doctors, nurses, you're a respiratory therapist, but your radiology, your pathologist, all of this is the sharing of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. We all kind of sidle up to the people that we admire the most, and we admire them for the same capabilities of the surgeon, the internist, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, my first question was about whether it's advisable to include certain limitations, or should I say certain situations that limited your ability to be better. For instance, you could say that you didn't get a chance of being exposed to advanced forms of technology in the use of patient care, and so you seek to get into a residency program or a program where you can learn more. You
Yeah,
can learn more. Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword though, because what'll happen is the minute you start making excuses, it looks like you're making excuses for not being the candidate that they're looking for. So I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
You know, I had one resident this year who was applying for pulmonary critical care and was trying to describe his evolution from beginning to end, and talked about his first night on call in the ICU. It was a busy night in the ICU, and I was terrified on my first night. I'm going, take that out of there. No, the bottom line, we're all scared that first night of the ICU, but don't say it. Everything is about making sure that you're putting yourself in the best light, but more importantly, make no excuses. You're looking to get
Okay,
better.
so we should never ever talk about our weaknesses in any way. It should always be strength.
The bottom line is you're just looking for a program that will enhance the 4 categories that I've mentioned 50 times already.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Dr. Peterson, before I call the next candidate, you mentioned something very interesting which came up, that if somebody is a graduate for more than 5 years, doing a master's in epidemiology, public health, does it help with skipping this 5 years mark?
Yes, because what happens is that if you graduated last year with your MPH, what will happen is you're essentially a new graduate. You're bringing different skills. And so what happens is you want to end up having finished something within the last 5 years. And if it's not medical school, it should be an advanced degree. In fact, if for example, supposing that your USMLE scores are just weak, how do you overcome it? You can't really go take it again. It is what it is. So then I advise people, go back and get your master's in either global health or epidemiology, and do it at a medical school. It might be more expensive, but what happens is you get to pick a project when you go to do your clinical research project in epidemiology. For example, I sent a student of ours from, it was an international graduate from Ross University Medical School in Dominica, West Indies. And I suggested then, with his weak scores, that he go back and do his MPH in epidemiology at Downstate. We're in Brooklyn. So he went to Downstate Medical School, did his MPH, got it. And when he went to do his clinical project, he went to the Department of Medicine. And I hooked him up. So what happened is he went to the Department of Medicine, and I told him to pick a project in nephrology. And because the chair of medicine was a nephrologist, and he picked the project, and it was such an interesting project that the chair decided that he wanted to be the mentor on the project himself. He worked with him, and this guy with horrendous USMLE scores became an intern at Downstate Medical Center. So it's important that if you just go and do an MPH anywhere, what you're trying to do is don't pick the best medical school, pick a weaker one, because your chances of getting into their program then just get enhanced.
That is a tremendous advice. I know a couple of our panelists have raised their hand. Before I come to them, I just want to take a couple of other candidates, if you don't mind. The next one is Ibrahim Kirit.
I actually, Samir, wanted to mention something.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peterson, for this wonderful presentation.
Ibrahim, if you don't mind holding on, Dr. Jamshed had a question. Yes.
It's not a question, actually. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. I just wanted to point out for everyone that there are that our international medical graduates from some countries go right into medical school after high school, technically. We are, in some ways, 4 years behind and playing catch up. Age, maturity, how the development takes place, some of those aspects are different. And sometimes we are actually doing things that American medical graduates are doing in pre-med to get into med school. So I think I wanted to make sure that we understand that when we are writing personal statements, that some of the experiences that IMGs described from those countries are much nearer to them than they are from students who may have gone through 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years of med school. And, so if just giving a perspective in that regards, Dr. Peterson.
And yeah, I mean, that's an important point. But one of the things that happens is a program director is trying to decide if somebody's out for 5 years and they've worked in this office, that office, it may be valuable clinical experience. What they're worried about is that they've started to forget their medical knowledge. And if the scores on the USMLE are off the charts, okay, we've established that. But sometimes people aren't the best test takers and the scores are like in between. And is the program director going to take a chance? They could end up finding a real gem of a real gem that just needs to be polished. But will they take a chance? The answer is usually no. Is that fair? No. But you know what? This is the reality that we're facing. So you want to try and end up making sure you're the best candidate you possibly can be.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Dr. Jamshed, thank you for the comment. Dr. Naveed, you had a quick comment?
Yeah, so, I did MPH, and it costs roughly about $30,000-$40,000 to do MPH. So I think the most important thing that you can do is talk to a mentor and see what is it that you can do to improve your resume. Not everyone needs another master's degree. You can gain additional research knowledge. So talk to people like Dr. Patterson or people who have done this and advised people many times. What happens is in eras, there is a category of year of graduation. So when you're putting for year of graduation, you are putting actually the year or time when you graduated from medical school. And that's what it goes to the program data. And that's how your application will be filtered out. So I will suggest you talking to a mentor first and getting advice. How can you improve your resume, and then applying on that, and then maybe writing to program directors ahead of the time that you have done this, but you don't meet the year of graduation cut off. So in this way, they can look at your application when ERA season is there.
Yeah, fair point. Because I think some students actually enhance their application by actually working in a research lab. The problem is that if they don't put your name on the paper when you did all that work, it becomes a self-defeating prophecy. So you want to kind of talk to students who've rotated through that lab. What was their experience? Did they get on the paper, et cetera, and make sure that you're able, if selected for interview, you're able to talk about that research project in a very meaningful way.
Sure. Just jumping, I think Ibrahim Kirit, we kind of cut you off a little bit, but sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Peterson, for this amazing presentation. I just wanted to ask you if you could share with us the materials you explained, if there is a presentation or something like that, and your LinkedIn account address if possible. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't even know what the yeah, Parag, if he just puts my name in LinkedIn, it should come up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they can search. Yeah, they can search with your name.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Ibrahim. Next is Srijana Uprethi.
Thank you for the presentation. I am Jana, just Jana for short, and I have a question. I'm one of those students who went to medical school immediately after my high school, but then I completed my residency in emergency medicine and general practice immediately after 5.5 years of my med school. But in the process, I did not score pretty well on my steps because I was doing two things at the time. And is there a way that I could write that down in the personal statement about why I was underprepared, and I admitted, but if I could mention anywhere in the personal statement about my low scores and how I worked on it. And the other thing I also wanted to ask is, will the non-physician letter of recommendation also work? But of course, like in a clinical situation, we work in a team with different nurses, and a lot of people get to know your work, not just physician. And if it describes my character, my work ethics, if it could be from a nurse or some other people that I have worked closely with in a hospital, will that also be a good letter of recommendation? So two things.
That's a really good question, and I think it would establish who you are. The question from the program director would more likely be, is she not able to get an attending to write a letter of recommendation for her? So it's again a double-edged sword. So the idea that you would get it from a nurse, it sounds perfectly reasonable to me, but I think the average program director would hold it against you. That assumed that you'd asked an attending and the answer was no. I would certainly hope that you would get it from attendings. It's a safer route to go.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Next hand is from Shuhi Lorkowski.
Hi, Dr. Peterson. Thank you for your presentation. I learned a lot. I got a PhD after I finished my MD. That kind of like making my gap year longer. Should I definitely mention that in the personal statement, or it is like obvious from my CV? They can tell that one of the reasons. And the second question is, you mentioned that the last paragraph is important in the PS. So my current version, my PS is a couple lines longer than one page. So should I definitely cut that back down within one page? Thank you very much.
Yes, you should try and get it on one page if you can. Second, they will see it from your CV, but what will happen is, remember, a program director is still going to try and select a candidate that is still going to be beneficial to them or their department. So, for example, if you end up looking at the program director, it's very easy to see what they've done. Go on PubMed, for example. Program director, how many publications does this program director have, and what has he published on? And so, for example, if you were writing to a specific program you're trying to get into, the personal statement that I would close with is, it's my hope to continue doing either, whether it's clinical or basic science research, and I'm hoping that I would have the opportunity to work with you on X number of projects, particularly if that program director has his own lab. These are the average resident in internal medicine does not have the expertise of working in a basic science lab. And if your PhD actually gives you that background, go and enhance on that and tell them you're looking for a program that you'll be able to continue to contribute, because now you're an asset to that program director who has his own lab. You're somebody who's going to help him publish. So anything that you have that you bring to the table, go ahead and talk about it, but make it as something that you could contribute to his own lab and his own academic productivity.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. I think we mute the participant after the question, so I'm sure they're very appreciative. Next question from Vivek Patel.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson and panelists. Dr. Peterson, I think you brought up a salient point about sincerity within the publication section. My question is, how important is a cohesive CV? Say you're applying to internal medicine, but you also had a vascular surgery case report or a qualitative public health project. Should you still list that? And second, maybe a more granular question. I had a couple of poster presentations at the New York ACP that were also presented at the National ACP meeting in Chicago, and they're published in the ebook. How would you classify that for CV purposes?
So what'll happen is they don't hold it against you. They know that in medical school, you're going to work with different attendings. So the ability to do a project, present it, publish it, etc., is just a skill they're looking for in general. So it could be a surgical case, a pathologic case. It does not have to be internal medicine if you're applying for that. So I think the important thing about your CV, that's all important, because you actually get to go double bang for the buck, so to speak. Because when your poster presentations are local, regional, national presentations, so it'll be the same presentation presented twice. That's how you list it. It's regional poster presentations and national poster presentations, and then if it's published abstracts, and you actually get to list it 3 separate times, as long as you can actually list where the abstract was published.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Next is Abbas Mohammadi.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, Dr. Peterson, other panelists. Thank you very much for your amazing comments. I have asked about year of graduation on my on the chat. So I think Dr. Sadiq responded that, but I want to be sure. So if we are all grad students, actually IMGs, and we have done a lot of research, and also, so I'm talking about in the US, the research and clinical shadowing in the US. And then you mentioned about filtering the applicants. So how can it be considered not to be filtered, or do you consider those as something that can cover that, because we have done a lot of research and also clinical observership in the US. And the next question is, you mentioned about program directors' recommendation letters. So is it important to have our like program directors in our department in the US who have been working with us and doing research, or you consider the program directors from our country writing down the letter? Which one do you like to listen more about? Thank you very much.
Sure. So what will happen is, in general, I would try and make sure that all of your letters were here from the United States. You want to make yourself look, this is, I'm going to be careful how I say this, because I mean no disrespect, but one of the things that a lot of these program directors are, they're tough characters, and they're not always the nicest people, and I think the issue of value judgments is something that we're all worried about as IMGs. And there was when I was an intern, I was rotating on a floor with 3 American grads and me, and they were good interns, and my attending said to me one day, we're standing by the elevator, and she goes, "Stephen, is it my imagination, or you head and shoulders over your fellow interns?" And I said, with all false modesty, "Oh, no, not at all. Where did you go to medical school?" When I told her, standing in front of the elevator, she looked at me like I just told her I had lepromatous leprosy. And I'll never forget the experience. And suddenly I was not the rock star I was 5 minutes before. And, in the first 3 years, we're asking you where you went to school, It has been years and years and years of, since someone has ever asked me where I went to medical school. And I'm very proud of the fact that I went to medical school in the Philippines, and I got great training there. And I was even prouder of the fact that almost all of my teachers had a child who rotated under me when I was in my 26 years as a program director that stopped when I came to Brooklyn 9 years ago. So do not apologize for being an international medical graduate, but try and again, I apologize for saying this, try to look as Americanized as you possibly can. It'll open a lot of more doors for you. I'm sorry to say that I even have to say that, but I think you're much safer looking more Americanized in your personal statement and your CV.
That is amazing insight, Dr. Peterson. And just we are very conscious of our speaker and panelist time. So I'm going to take next 2-3 hands raised. The other ones, if you can put the questions in the chat group, we will make sure that we answer them and post them in our Misni app and website. So next is Aneem Malik.
Good morning. Thank you so much for a very informative lecture and presentation. I would just want to know, I've had 2 interviews in the last cycle. I could not match. So there was something that definitely they liked. I don't know if they actually took a look at my personal statement, because both my PDs specifically asked me to tell me about myself. They asked me about myself in a very chronological order, post my residency in ophthalmology, from my country of origin to the point that we are in today. And I actually did reiterate. So my impression was that both of them, one in New Jersey and one in New York, did not really even read my CV, what to talk of personal statement. But now that I'm applying again, I just want to know that if I am doing a management course, if I'm working in Essen, but I'm working in a health home, I'm working and dealing with insurances, I'm looking at the social determinants, but everything is aligned and everything is in sync with me being a doctor. Do I need to reiterate that in my personal statement, other than the fact that this has been said in my CV? Because when I'm listing my work experience, when I'm listing my qualifications, I'm actually talking about whatever that I've done. But do I actually home everything back in? Like I tell them that I transitioned from being an ophthalmologist in my country, in Pakistan, to being to wanting and gravitated towards family medicine or internal medicine in the US, because I have been exposed to the population here. How do I just steer everything together? Thank you.
So that's a really good question. And one of the things is that I wouldn't spend, like, obviously, if you were selected for interview, they liked something about what you've said to them, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't spend a lot of time talking about transitioning. Like, for example, somebody who is supposing you were applying for neurology, and my experience as an ophthalmologist, I was particularly interested in neuro-ophthalmology, and and now you're applying for neurology, you're kind of making it happen. So the question is, what made you decide to go into family medicine, and what was your experience in ophthalmology that made you want to go into family medicine? Is it, did you, not to be rude, but are you picking it because it's easier to get into? Was there something specific about family medicine that made you want to make this transition?
And if I may add, Dr. Peterson, does the experience of working in the community, addressing some of what Aneem said about social determinants and weaving it into the personal statement help?
Yes. So, like, for example, if what she was saying, working at Essen and evaluating all these things made her decide to go into family medicine because she felt she could make a bigger difference in the social determinants of health in this community, and that I wouldn't talk about, so much about ophthalmology, why you're not looking for it here. It's working at Essen opened up a world of issues that you think that you could contribute to. That would certainly get a program director's attention in family medicine.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Next question from Mona Aswad.
Hi, thank you very much for this meeting. So I was an older IMG, and I joined the Caribbean Medical School to refresh my year of grad and to gain some clinical experience inside the United States. Would you think that will overcome my 5 year plus year of graduation? Thank you.
Did you get a degree from your experience in the Caribbean?
Yes.
Yes. So the bottom line, if you get any new degree, will end up changing the date on ERIS if you play it right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next question is from Hind Abelhamid.
Hi, Dr. Peterson. Thank you for this presentation. My question is, I'm 6 years from graduation. If I had residency in my home country, how can I mention this in the BS? Should I explain why I'm applying to another residency in US in the same specialty?
No. One of the things is that, when, it's a very different kind of experience in when you're in India and Pakistan of getting certain residencies, and internal medicine is actually almost more highly regarded in your home countries than they are here. Internal medicine, back in the day in the United States was an American medical graduate program. For years, it has not been. The American graduates are all going into specialties, leaving internal medicine, pediatrics, and family medicine for the most part to foreign international medical graduates. So we are the people looking for those jobs. So you just want to make yourself the best candidate for this. You don't have to explain how as a surgeon in Pakistan why you want to become an internist here. It's the bottom line is your experience here has already opened up so many opportunities, and it's really just an exciting field that you've decided you want to be part of here in the United States.
Yeah. Dr. Peterson, you have been going at this for the last half an hour, and we have over 200 participants who have been listening to you asking questions. So you are just doing an amazing job. I would hate to short circuit any of you guys from asking Dr. Peterson a question, but if you feel that you really need to ask a question, please stay. Otherwise, put it in the chat. That is very important. We have 4 hands raised, Dr. Peterson. Would you like to take questions from them, or would you rather have them submit on the chat?
Sure, I can take their questions now.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So please, anybody else? I will not be able to take any questions. Please put in the chat. Srijana, you have another question?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all the effort you're taking to answer the question. And I'll make it very short. I just had a question about this year's application, since internal medicine is participating in program signaling. How will it affect the programs? Like if I signal your program, will it mean that I am interested? How will the program director see it, the signaling, if I signal the program?
Yeah, that's less in my area of expertise, since I have not been doing this for 9 years. My own program director at Methodist has said to me that it helps narrow the kind of geographic area that you're kind of interested in. What I do say to some people as you're applying to programs is everybody's applying in the New York kind of tri-state area. So, if you look at programs, for example, applying, there are 3 medical schools in West Virginia. So, when you go look at programs, that did not match last year. Mm-hmm. Those are the programs to start with. It may be in Alabama and you go, who the hell wants to live in Alabama? It may not be you, but you could do anything for 3 or 4 years. Your job is to get into a program. So, the biggest thing is, yes, you want to end up showing people that you want to be in a particular area. We all want to end up being close to home. But quite honestly, I always recommend that people with the borderline USMLE scores start with programs that didn't match last year. Because everybody's going to know when you're applying, if they didn't match last year, there's something wrong with that program. And that's a program that you'll get into. Because even a program that's on probation, even a program that has all kinds of issues against it, they're not going to close the program. They're going to have to fix it. And by the time you graduate, it will be all fixed. So I would suggest that you start with those programs.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I may take the privilege of the chair to direct the next couple of questions to Dr. Jamshed and Dr. Naveed, who are also part of the panel, just to give you a little break, Dr. Peterson.
Thank you.
And you can jump in anytime. So
Sure, thank you.
Sanjay, do you have a question that Dr. Jamshed and Dr. Naveed could take?
Actually, I can respond to the signal preferencing.
Sure.
We've been addressing that. So the data is showing that the last year's survey that program directors are looking at signal preferencing, but not so much geographical preference. But I think that Dr. Sadiq, Naveed, and I have talked about this, that the how it affects IMGs is still a question. Is positively affecting the US seniors. For internal medicine, for example, some programs get up to 6,000 applications for however many spots they have. So if you have a good application, they like you for an interview. Yeah, I mean, you've signaled them. It will work, in your favor, or you want to get their attention. But I think the jury is still out there about international medical graduates. But geographical preference has not been shown as much of benefit right now for IMGs.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Jamshed. That is amazing insight. And I think we did have Sanjay. I think we lost him somewhere. If you want to raise your hand again, there's a lot of people in this. In the meanwhile, we have Dr. Barmecha also available to answer questions along with Dr. Naveed and Dr. Jamshed. So Sham Kumar is, yes, Sanjay. Okay, there you are. All right.
Thank you so much, all the panelists, for the amazing session. I just have a question that I am an international medical graduate and an old graduate also, and I held my internal medicine residency from my home country, and now working as an extern in the United States, and I have all the 3 letters of recommendation here from United Nations. So my question is that, should I upload all the letter of recommendation from United States, or is it advisable to upload a letter of recommendation for my internal medicine residency from my home country? So I'm just a little bit confused about it. So can you please help me out?
Dr. Jamshed, Dr. Naveed?
Yeah, I think Dr. Peterson already addressed this in some ways, that if you have US clinical experience and letters from here, you definitely want to utilize them. Remember, you're trying to market yourself, right? You're trying to highlight. So however, your experience in your home country is also really important. And I think you've done an outstanding job for some of the specialties. You can now submit the standard evaluation letter in lieu of the chair letter. So that is something you can utilize for your internship, because that may be able to, so you replace the chair letter with the SEL, and then you still submit the LORs from your US clinical experience. Dr. Sadiq, you agree, or you have anything else to add to that? I know we've talked about this.
Yeah, so I would just say that I think it really depends on the length of experience that you have in home country. If you have 2 or 3 years of home country experience, like residency, I want to know how you did in that residency, and I want to know it from your supervisor. So at least, upload that LOR. If you did spend only, 1 to 2 months, then I think it's inconsequential. In that case, I will.
You're breaking up, Dr. Naveed.
All 4 letter of experience, 4 LORs important about that. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Well, no.
Okay, so I think it really depends on the length of experience. If you have significant length of experience at home country, let's say you did 2 or 4 years of home country residency, I will suggest uploading SEL or LOR depending on your specialty from that supervisor.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Naveed. So I'm going to have Dr. Peterson take the last question from Sham. But then we also have our panelists who are on camera, Dr. Jamshed, Dr. Naveed, and I just saw Dr. Barmecha. I would then, after Dr. Peterson, and they have gone over the questions, put their comments and thoughts. But I can only take one more question. I can only take so much privilege for my executive chair I am, guys. So please put your questions or reach directly later on, as you know, all the panelists up here. So last question from Sham Kumar.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mehta and Dr. Peterson, for giving me an opportunity to speak up and ask questions. My question is about, since you know that USMLE Step 1 has been turned into pass fail, and also Step 2 CS has been discontinued, and most of the IMGs are applying for this year into medicine residency as their OET pathway. So as you said, you will apply a filter based on year of graduation when you are going to offer an applicant an interview. So do you also consider these two options, like the person do have USMLE Step 1 pass and fail, and do have someone do have a stellar scores in Step 1, and also people who might have a Step 2 CS, but a lot of candidates do not have that. So what is your opinion about that in this year's residency application? Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Segal, I'll refer that question to the program directors. I think they're better equipped to answer that one.
Dr. Jamshed, Dr. Naveed.
So none of us are program directors yet, but I think Dr. Jamshed is associate PD. I think, Sham, it really depends on the individual program criteria. So I will just urge you to look at the program criteria for each program. And don't apply blindly, but apply to the programs where they have criteria listed on the website, or you can ask from their program coordinator. Usually, program will have some sort of criteria. Most of the programs actually have around year of graduation, USMLE scores, or pass fail, or any attempts on the exam. So look at individual program criteria.
And then follow Dr. Peterson's advice as well. You want to look for programs that, how they did last year. You can look at all that. Somebody asked the question, all that data is available on the NRMP website. So you may want to do some homework with that.
Great. Dr. Segal, if I could just add one thing, not to that question, but if when you get an interview, one of the things that I coach our residents going for fellowship is that you, if you're going to a specific program, you're applying to a specific hospital, go look online who the faculty in the department are, and know the program director, the associate program directors. Go up on PubMed, find out what they've done. So, for example, when you're actually interviewing, you want to know, who are the main people that you're going to be interviewing with, because, and when you look at what they've done, you don't want to say, oh, what opportunities will I have for research in this program? Like, for example, Dr. Jamshed, I've noticed in your CV, you've done this. Well, I have an opportunity to work with you on this project, for example. That shows that you really are interested in the program. You've done your homework. Now, there's no way that you're going to remember everything about every person's CV. So what happened is when you're researching the program, take a little 5x7 card and write down the program director, the associate program director, write their names, what they've done, what their interest is, clinical research, basic science, whatever it is, and keep those cards in your pocket if you're doing an in-person interview. If you're doing online, keep the cards right next to you, because once you find out who you're interviewing with, whip out the card and sit in, take a quick glance, and you remembered everything about it. They're going to realize you did your homework, but they're also going to realize the resident who does their, or a student who does their research for interview is the same person who looks up everything, looks up every drug interaction, looks up everything about a case. Those are the most reliable people. Show them that you're willing to do the work, even to prepare for an interview.
Dr. Peterson, you are so amazingly convincing and you know, so forthright. I wish I could take you on as an intern, you know. I wish we had more interns like you. That's what I mean. So you know, I am so sorry, guys. I cannot take any more questions, but I do want to hand it the floor over to for any last comments from Dr. Peterson, and then to some of our panelists, so we can close the session today. You know, you have been an amazing participant and amazing questions, and I must thank our participant for that. So, Dr. Peterson, any lasting final comments?
No, you know what you have to do, you know, so now we just gotta, you know, get it down on paper and make sure that last paragraph represents wow. Somebody who reads your personal statement should learn something about you, even somebody who knows you better than anyone, mom, dad, your spouse, some significant other. Someone who knows you should learn something about you in that personal statement. It should be that warm. It should be that important that somebody reads that. If you read it out loud, if it doesn't move you, it's not going to move anyone else. So you guys are all smart enough to be here. You're all doctors. Go do the homework and make sure that that personal statement is as beautiful and brilliant as you are yourself.
Amazing pearls of wisdom, Dr. Peterson. Thank you. I just want to turn the floor over to Dr. Barmecha.
You know, Steve, you are always amazing. I mean, every time I hear from you, I just like, I'm having goosebumps. So thank you so much for your inspirational. I still have to write few more personal statements till I retire, and I will make sure that the last paragraph is the key. As Sumir said, I am PGY 26, and but thank you all those who have joined us today. It was a very nice experience, and try to become a better storyteller. I mean, that's what I would say in the end. And thank you, Mizni, and thanks everybody for giving us the platform.
Thank you, Dr. Barmecha. Dr. Naveed, I know you changed your position and you're on call and you're taking precious time of this day from patient care. Thoughts from you?
Can you hear me okay?
It's a little cracked, but you know,
can you hear
go
me
ahead,
now?
please. Yes, a little better.
So I think, you know, we have pretty much covered a personal statement. There are a few things that, you know, I just wanted to add. You know, mention a case or life experience if it resonates with you, but it should be an impactful experience. And I think Dr. Patterson mentioned that, you know, something that happened 5 years ago when you were 5 probably really doesn't matter at this time. So how can you tie up to the present? That's what matters. You know, all of us has strengths and weaknesses. It's about, you know, being aware of your weaknesses and what are you doing to improve and work on them. That's what matters. All of us have, you know, weaknesses, red flags. Not every, you know, deficiency is a red flag. So talk to your mentors, know what is red flag. I'm from the group of people who believe that red flags should be mentioned if you were able to work on that and show your resilience. Match in general is a very anxiety provoking process. It brings up a lot of anxiety from very good candidates too. But just remember that you all have worked hard for this. You are all enough. Trust yourself, talk to your mentors, take good care of your mental health in next 3 to 4 months. And don't, you know, at any point, don't, you know, underestimate yourself. You are all good enough.
Thank you, Dr. Naveed. Amazing insights. Dr. Jamshed.
Thank you, Samir. So, Dr. Peterson, thank you. Learned a lot. Our goal has always been for you all to understand that we have to narrow the gap between US seniors and IMGs. And the way you do that is start thinking about what is it that they're doing differently, whether it's in undergraduate or in med school, maybe even try to talk to some of them and see how close you can come to that. Use your experiences in your home country as a strength and figure out how that will fit in with the residency program and how that will bring diversity or something unique. And I know we don't like to want to say this, but really what you're doing is selling yourself, right? You have to market and highlight your strengths and why should I look at you and not somebody else? So if you do a personal statement that is similar to every other IMG, it's not going to be of, it's not going to be of interest to me. And we don't want to know why you went into med school. You already got into med school. We want to know what you did in med school. Like Dr. Peterson said, what is it that you did there and then beyond? So stop talking about, I woke up one day and saw so-and-so and this happened. Start with your medical school experience. Yeah. For me, even though the last paragraph is very important, for me, the first sentence is also very important. So if your first sentence is, when I was 5, I'm probably not even going to read your last paragraph, okay? But I have seen such amazing personal statements. But then I've also talked to IMGs who have had such amazing experiences, but they never talk about it. I have a medical student who has a blog, a food blog that she started in med school. And it took me an hour for her to get to tell me about it. I said, well, when were you going to tell me about the food blog? Why did you start it, right? She started it to relieve the stress and whatever else. What I'm trying to say is think beyond what you are thinking that there is no template. Somebody was asking us, there is no template, okay? Your personal statement should be so personal that nobody else can put your name on it, okay? Be curious during medical school, be curious during residency, try to figure out everything. If you have to Google it, okay? You have to learn, do your homework before your interview, before you apply, and I know many of you will shine. And as Dr. Sadiq also said, not every deficiency is a red flag. There are some deficiencies that actually make you stronger, okay? So good luck, and I know you all will do great.
Thank you, Dr. Jamshed. Dr. Sadiq, sorry, been calling you Dr. Naveed. So Dr. Sadiq, thank you. Dr. Barmecha, always a pleasure, and thank you. But special thanks to Dr. Peterson for taking the time. I thank you on behalf of all international medical graduates here or who'll be watching an amazing pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much again. And we appreciate this meeting as the brainchild of Dr. Parag Mehta, who has brought us all together and is the president of MISNI and is always thinking how to help everybody. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Peterson.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Take care. Take care, everybody, and best of luck. We'll see you at the next event. Take care. Bye-bye.